You know what the most dangerous prison in the world is? It's not built with steel bars. It's not guarded by soldiers. It's the prison inside your own mind, the prison of who you think you are. Here's the truth. The version of you sitting here right now is not the real you. It's a collection of fears you've inherited, excuses you've repeated, and limitations you've accepted. That's why some of you feel stuck. That's why some of you keep repeating the same patterns, getting the same results, and wondering why life doesn't change. But tonight, I'm not here to make you feel good. I'm here to challenge you. Here to rip apart the lie that comfort and safety will ever give you the life you crave. Because if you truly want to rise, if you truly want to become unshakable, unstoppable, deniable, you must be willing to do something most people will never dare to do. You must destroy yourself before life destroys you. That means destroying your excuses, destroying your old story, destroying the weak, fragile identity that's been keeping you small. And when you do, when you burn that old self to the ground, only then can you build something unbreakable. Only then can you rise with strength, discipline, and clarity. So I need you to lean in, not just with your ears, but with your entire soul. Because what I'm about to share with you is not motivation, it's transformation. This is not about learning. It's about breaking chains and building a new destiny. Stay with me until the end. I promise you, you won't leave here the same person who walked in. The first thing you've got to understand is this: who you think you are right now, the identity you've been carrying around, is not really you. It's a version of you that's been shaped, molded, and sometimes poisoned by years of conditioning. It's a mix of what your parents told you, what teachers said, what friends laughed at, what society expects. Fear is whispered in your ear when no one else was around. That version of you is not the highest expression of who you are. It's the survival mask you've been wearing to get by. And if you want to step into the life you were created for, you've got to be willing to shatter that illusion, to strip off that mask, and to face the raw truth of who you really are and who you could become. Think about it. From the time you were little, you were told to believe about yourself. Maybe someone said you weren't smart enough, or you weren't attractive enough, or you weren't the kind of person who succeeds. Maybe you grew up in an environment where playing small felt safe because standing out meant criticism or rejection. Time, those words became walls. They became the bars of your own prison, and you didn't even realize you were holding the key in your own hand. Every identity you've clung to, every label you've accepted, every limitation you've repeated has created this version of you that you walk around with today. And the tragedy is most people never question it. They never stop to ask, who told me I had to be this way? Said this was all I could be. They don't realize that to truly grow, you must first have the courage to destroy the farsion of yourself that was built on lies, on fear, on other people's opinions. I know some of you in this room right now are already feeling that tension in your chest because you know deep down you've been living smaller than you were meant to. You know there's a part of you that has been buried under excuses, under doubt, under years of just getting by. And that's why this feels uncomfortable, because the truth always cuts through the lie. And here's the truth. Only reason you are not already living at your highest potential is because you've been more committed to who you've been than to who you could be. You've been holding on to an identity that no longer serves you, and it's time to destroy it. Now, destruction sounds scary, doesn't it? Because destruction means loss. It means death. It means letting go of the familiar. But let me tell you something. Destruction is sacred when it clears the path for creation. Seed must break apart for the tree to grow. The old skin must shed for the new body to expand. The false self must die for the true self to be born. That is the cycle of transformation, and you can't skip it. You cannot build the life you want while still clinging to the person you were. One has to end for the other to begin. So let me ask you right now, who is the person you've been pretending to be? Is that version of you that's been walking around in fear, saying, I can't, when the truth is, you won't? Who is that voice in your head that says, I've always been this way, as if that's some kind of permanent sentence? That person is not the real you. That's the shell of you. That's the mask you've been hiding behind. And if you don't have the courage to destroy it, to tear it apart, to let it crumble, then you'll spend the rest of your life as a prisoner of that illusion. And you know what? Most people never take that step because it's uncomfortable. It's messy. It's terrifying to let go of the identity you've been carrying, even when that identity is the very thing holding you back. Because at least it's familiar, right? At least it's safe. But safe is killing you. Safe is keeping you small. Safe is robbing you of the fire that's in your soul. You can't afford safe anymore. You can't afford to keep playing the role of who you've been when the world is waiting for who you're meant to be. So how do you destroy that illusion? You start by telling the truth. Brutal and filtered. Excuse truth. You start admitting where you've been lying to yourself. You admit where you've been pretending that you're okay when you're not. You admit where you've been saying, that's just the way I am, when really it's just the way you've chosen to stay. That honesty is the hammer that cracks the mask. That honesty is the fire that burns the false identity to ash. And yes, it hurts. Yes, it feels like losing a part of yourself. That pain is not punishment. It's the pain of rebirth. Some of you right now need to destroy the identity of the failure, the one who says, never make it. Some of you need to destroy the identity of the victim, the one who says, It's always someone else's fault. Some of you need to destroy the identity of the procrastinator, the one who keeps saying, tomorrow I'll change. Whatever that false self is, it has to go. Because as long as you cling to it, you cannot step into the identity of the warrior, the leader, the creator, the unstoppable force you were designed to be. I'll tell you something else. When you destroy that false self, you don't lose anything real. You only lose the illusion. You only lose the chains. What you gain is the freedom to create. What you gain is the freedom to build. You gain is the permission to finally live as the person you've always known deep down you could be. That's why this process is not about becoming someone new. It's about uncovering who you've always been underneath the layers of fear and doubt. So I'm going to challenge you. Don't just hear these words and nod your head. Don't just agree in your mind and then go back to your old life tomorrow. Decide right now that the version of you that walked into this room, the version of you that's been playing small, that's been chained by lies, will not be the same version that walks out. Decide that you will burn the mask, destroy the illusion, and rise from it stronger, freer, and more unstoppable than ever before. Because when you strip away the false self, you finally unleash the real self, and the real self is powerful beyond measure, and that's where the true rebuilding begins. If there's one thing that shapes your life more than anything else, it's not your circumstances, it's not your background, it's not even the opportunities you were or weren't given. It's your beliefs. What you believe about yourself, about life, about what's possible or impossible, that becomes the invisible script you live by. And here's the brutal truth. Most people are living by a script that isn't even theirs. They're reciting lines that were handed to them by someone else. Then they wonder why their story feels empty, why it feels like they're trapped in someone else's movie. Your beliefs are either the foundation of your freedom or the chains of your prison. Either building you up into the person you're destined to be, or they are quietly, silently, relentlessly burying you alive. And the tragedy is most people never stop to challenge those beliefs. They just accept them. They say things like, that's just who I am, or that's just how life works, or people like me don't get to have that. And the moment those words come out of their mouth, they've signed a contract with limitation. They've chained themselves to an identity that will never let them grow. But I'm here to tell you, if you want to step into a life of power, if you want to step into a life that truly sets you on fire, you've got to be willing to burn those limiting beliefs to the ground before they burn you. Because make no mistake, if you don't destroy them, they will destroy you. Let me ask you something. How many times have you wanted to go after something, an opportunity, a dream, a goal, but the voice in your head said, who do you think you are? How many times have you thought about changing your body, your finances, your relationships, your career? That little whisper of doubt said, you've tried before and you always fail. How many times have you let that single belief stop you from even taking the first step? That voice is not your protector. That voice is not your reality. That voice is the echo of fear, the residue of past pain, the programming of a world that's been trying to keep you small. And if you don't silence it, it will keep running your life like a script you never agreed to. Beliefs are powerful because they don't just stay in your head. They shape your actions. If you believe you can't, you won't even try. If you believe you're not enough, you'll sabotage yourself before you ever start. If you believe success is for other people, you'll never notice the doors opening in front of you. It's not that life isn't giving you chances. It's that your beliefs have trained your eyes not to see them. That's how dangerous they are. They don't just hold you back. They blind you to what's possible. And here's the scary part. Most of those beliefs were not even consciously chosen. They were installed. Somewhere along the way, someone's words got into your system like a virus. Maybe it was a parent who said, you'll never amount to much. Maybe it was a teacher who embarrassed you when you failed. Maybe it was a friend who laughed at your dream. And without realizing it, you accepted it as truth. You repeated it enough times that now it feels like reality. But reality is not what's true. It's what you believe to be true. And when you believe a lie long enough, it becomes your prison. So you've got to wake up. You've got to draw a line in the sand and say, no more carrying someone else's doubts as my identity. No more letting old beliefs run my new future. More telling myself stories that keep me in chains. You've got to rip those beliefs out at the root. You've got to burn them before they bury you. Now, let me be clear, destroying limiting beliefs is not comfortable because those beliefs have been your companions for a long time. They've been your excuse, your shield, your comfort zone. They've given you reasons not to risk, not to fail, not to be exposed. So when you decide to destroy them, it feels like ripping a part of yourself away. But understand this, you're not ripping away who you are. You're ripping away who you're not. You're tearing down the lies to uncover the truth. And the truth is you are more powerful, more capable, resilient than you've ever given yourself credit for. So how do you do it? You confront the lie with evidence. Every time the belief says, I can't, you find proof that you already have. Every time the belief says, I always failed, you dig up the moments where you succeeded, even if they were small. Every time the belief says, I don't deserve it, you remind yourself that the fact you're alive, breathing, here in this moment means you were born deserving. The way you break a belief is by starving it of certainty and feeding a new one until it takes root. Because here's the secret, beliefs are just habits of thought, They're not permanent. They're not fixed. They're not carved into stone. Flexible, fragile, and if you hit them hard enough, they shatter. But they only shatter when you have the courage to hit them. Most people never do. They just keep rehearsing the same story in their mind, living the same life, never realizing they had the power to rewrite the script all along. And I'll tell you this, the moment you burn a limiting belief, you don't just free yourself, you change the trajectory of your life. Because suddenly you see opportunities you couldn't see before. You take actions you were too afraid to take before. You attract people and situations that match your new standard. It's like stepping out of a dark room into the sunlight. You realize the world was never small. It was just your belief that kept you in the shadows. So let me ask you, what beliefs do you need to burn tonight? What lies have you been carrying as truth? Phrases have you been repeating to yourself that are nothing more than chains? Is it, I'm not smart enough? Is it, I'll never change? Is it, people like me don't succeed? Whatever it is, you've got to make the decision that those words will no longer define you. Because the second you burn that belief, the second you cut it off at the root, you give birth to a new one. And that new belief is the seed of your future. You want to know the real difference between people who rise and people who stay stuck. It's not talent. It's not money. It's not luck. It's belief. The ones who rise are the ones who believe deep down they must. Not that they can. Not that they should. That they must. Because when something becomes a must, you find a way. When something becomes a must, you tear down every wall. When something becomes a must, your mind rewires, your body re-energizes, your entire being moves in alignment with that belief. That's the fire you've got to step into. That's the fire you've got to embrace. Stop waiting for life to give you permission. Stop waiting for someone else to validate you. Stop waiting for circumstances to be perfect. Burn the limiting belief now, or it will burn your future tomorrow. And when you finally let those false beliefs die, you will rise into the life that was waiting for you all along. Comfort feels like a blessing. In truth, it's the slowest poison you'll ever taste. It creeps in quietly, it soothes you, it makes you feel like you're safe, like you're secure. But what it really does is rob you of your hunger. It strips you of your urgency. It kills your edge. And if you're not careful, you'll wake up one day and realize that comfort has cost you your future. Because comfort never creates greatness. Comfort never builds warriors. Comfort never forges leaders. Comfort is the silent enemy of growth. And if you don't destroy it, it will destroy everything you were meant to become. Think about it. Every single breakthrough in your life, every single moment where you actually grew, where you expanded, where you became more, it didn't happen when things were easy. It didn't happen when you were comfortable. It happened when you were stretched. It happened when you were challenged. It happened when you were on the edge of your limits and you had no choice but to break through them. Growth doesn't live inside your comfort zone. It lives on the other side of fear, on the other side of discomfort, on the other side of risk. And yet, most people spend their entire lives worshiping comfort like it's God. They chase it, they protect it, they defend it. And then they wonder why they feel unfulfilled, why they feel restless, why they feel like something's missing. Something is missing. What's missing is the fire. What's missing is the stretch. What's missing is the part of you that only comes alive when you step into the unknown. You see, your soul doesn't grow in comfort. Your body might relax there. Your mind might get a temporary rest there, but your spirit dies there. And that's why you can't afford to make comfort your destination. Because comfort will never give you the life you're dreaming of. It will only give you a slow, quiet death. Tell you the truth, the comfort zone is not just a place, it's a trap. It's a cage disguised as a home. It feels warm, it feels safe, but the longer you stay inside, the weaker you get. Just like a muscle that never gets used, you begin to atrophy. Ambition atrophies, your courage atrophies, your creativity atrophies. Until one day you realize you're just a shadow of who you could have been, and the only way to break that cycle is to tear the comfort zone apart. To deliberately step into discomfort, to deliberately walk into the fire, to deliberately do the thing that scares you. Because that's where life begins. Ask yourself, how many times have you stayed in a job you hated because it was comfortable? How many times have you stayed in a relationship that was toxic because it was familiar? How many times have you let your dreams collect dust on the shelf because it was easier to play safe than to risk failing? Every single one of those moments was your comfort zone owning you, controlling you, stealing from you. And the cost is not just the dream, it's your identity. Because every time you choose comfort over growth, you reinforce the belief that you're not capable of more. You weaken your own self-trust. You tell yourself, this is all I deserve. And you settle. But here's the truth. You were not designed to settle. You were not created to play small. Inside you is a fire, and that fire demands fuel. The fuel is challenge. The fuel is risk. The fuel is uncertainty. The fuel is stepping into situations where you don't know if you can handle it, and then proving to yourself that you can. That is what builds confidence. That is what builds resilience. That is what builds character. You can't read about it. You can't watch it. You can't think your way into it. You've got to live it. You've got to put yourself in the arena. You can get hit, where you can fail, where you can bleed, and where you can rise. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but what if I fail? What if I get hurt? If I step out of my comfort zone and I'm not enough? That's exactly the point, because failure is not your enemy. It's your teacher. Pain is not your enemy. It's your sculptor. Discomfort is not your enemy. It's your doorway. Every single person who has ever built something extraordinary has walked through that door. They faced the fear. They've faced the unknown. They've faced the discomfort. They've discovered that on the other side of it was a version of themselves they never knew existed. You've got to understand the comfort zone is not neutral. It doesn't just keep you the same. It slowly makes you less. But discomfort, challenge, that doesn't make you less. It makes you more. It forges you. It sharpens you. It carves out the strength, the discipline, the resilience that you'll need for every dream you've been carrying inside you. You don't get that by staying comfortable. You only get that by being willing to walk into the fire. So if you're serious about destroying yourself to build yourself, then you've got to be willing to destroy your addiction to comfort. You've got to be willing to do the thing that terrifies you, to take the leap that scares you, to step into the uncertainty that makes your stomach turn. Because that's where the treasure is. That's where the life you've been craving has been hiding. No one is going to deliver it to you while you're sitting on the couch, scrolling, wishing, waiting. You've got to take it. You've got to claim it. You've got to earn it. And let me tell you something. When you do, everything changes. Because suddenly you realize that the things you thought were impossible were only impossible inside the comfort zone. Suddenly you realize that fear wasn't there to stop you. It was there to guide you. Suddenly you realize that you're capable of 10 times more than you ever thought. Because you proved it to yourself in the fire. And that realization changes everything. It changes the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you carry yourself. It changes your standard. It changes what you tolerate. It changes what you demand from life. That is why you must tear apart the comfort zone before it tears apart your destiny. That is why you must choose growth over ease, hunger over safety, fire over numbness. Because comfort may feel good today, but it will cost you everything tomorrow. And discomfort may feel painful today, but it will give you everything tomorrow. So stop protecting the life that's killing you. Start building the life that's waiting for you. If you really want to rebuild yourself into the person you were born to be, you can't just destroy illusions and break free from comfort. You've got to go deeper. You've got to go after the things that are quietly eating you alive. The toxic patterns, the addictions, the destructive cycles you've allowed to take root in your life. Because the truth is, it's not always the big storms that sink the ship. It's the little leaks. And some of you are leaking every single day through habits that feel harmless in the moment, but are destroying your future in slow motion. Let's get real. Every single one of us has patterns, routines, habits, ways of reacting, ways of coping. Some of them are powerful. They lift us higher. They keep us moving forward. But others are poison. They're the patterns that drain our energy, rob our focus, strip us of our discipline. The ones that keep us going in circles. Maybe for you, it's procrastination. Maybe it's reaching for your phone every 5 seconds instead of doing the work. Maybe it's numbing yourself with food, with alcohol, with Netflix, scrolling, with anything that makes you forget the life you're not building. Maybe it's surrounding yourself with people who keep you small, who feed your doubts, who reinforce your worst habits. Whatever it is, you know what it is. You don't need me to tell you. You feel it in your gut. You feel it in the moments you're alone, when you're honest with yourself. And here's the thing. These patterns don't just show up randomly. They come from something deeper. They're a way of avoiding pain. They're a way of covering fear. They're a way of filling the emptiness that comes when you're not living in alignment with who you know you could be. That's why they're addictive. That's why they feel good for a moment, but leave you feeling worse afterward. That's why you keep going back, even though it's killing your potential, because it's easier to numb yourself than to face the truth. But let me tell you, every time you give into those patterns, every time you let the addiction win, you are not just losing time, you're training yourself to be weak. You're training yourself to settle. You're training yourself to surrender to the smallest version of you. The longer you do it, the harder it gets to break free because the chain gets tighter until one day you wake up and it's not just a habit anymore. It's who you are. And you've got to decide if that's the person you want to die as. Now, here's the brutal truth. If you want to build the strongest, most unstoppable version of yourself, you've got to be ruthless about destroying those patterns. Not gentle, not casual, ruthless. You've got to treat them like an enemy because that's what they are. And you've got to cut them out even when it hurts, even when it feels impossible, even when part of you wants to cling to them because they've been part of your life for so long. People always say, it's so hard to break my habits. No, it's not hard. It's costly. It's costing your energy, your clarity, your confidence, your future. That's what's hard. What's hard is living 10 years from now in regret, knowing you could have been so much more, but you were too busy being owned by your distractions. What's hard is looking in the mirror and knowing you betrayed yourself every single day by choosing temporary comfort over lasting growth. That's hard. Breaking the pattern. That's freedom. And don't get it twisted. Breaking these toxic patterns isn't about perfection. It's about honesty. It's about saying, this is no longer acceptable. This will no longer define me. This will no longer own me. It's about replacing the destructive with the constructive. Replacing the habit of numbing with the habit of building. Replacing the pattern of avoidance with the pattern of action. Replacing the identity of weakness with the identity of strength. That's how you change, not by hoping, not by waiting, not by talking about it, by acting, by deciding, by cutting the rope. I want you to think about your life right now. Think about the cycle you keep repeating, the one you promised yourself 100 times you'd stop, but you keep going back. What has it cost you? How much energy has it stolen? How many opportunities have you missed because you were too busy stuck in the loop? How much confidence have you lost every time you said you'd change but didn't? That is the price of not destroying those patterns. It's a price you cannot afford if you want to live the life you were meant to live. You've got to stop negotiating with your poison. You've got to stop excusing it, justifying it, rationalizing it. You've got to stop saying, it's not that bad, or I'll deal with it later. Later doesn't exist. Tomorrow doesn't exist. The only time you have power is now. And right now, you've got to make the choice to destroy the pattern, or the pattern will destroy you. There is no middle ground. And yes, it's going to feel uncomfortable at first. Yes, it's going to feel like withdrawal. Yes, it's going to feel like you're losing a part of yourself. But remember this, you are not losing yourself. You are losing the chain. You are not losing freedom. You are gaining it. You are not losing comfort. You are gaining power. Because every time you break a destructive pattern, you're proving to yourself that you're in control. You're proving to yourself that you are stronger than your excuses, stronger than your cravings, stronger than your weaknesses. And that proof builds momentum. That proof builds belief. That proof builds a new identity. Once you start stacking that identity, everything changes. You don't just quit the bad habit. You become the kind of person who doesn't need it. You don't just resist temptation. You become the kind of person who doesn't even crave it. You don't just remove the toxic pattern. You replace it with powerful patterns that elevate you, strengthen you, sharpen you. And over time, those new patterns don't just change your actions, they change your destiny. That's why destroying toxic patterns and addictions is not optional. It's not something you'll get around to when life calms down. It's urgent, it's necessary, it's life or death for your potential. Because the life you're dreaming of cannot be built on a foundation that's rotting underneath you. You can't build greatness on top of self-sabotage. You can't build freedom on top of chains. You've got to clear it. You've got to burn it. You've got to destroy it. And when you do, when you finally cut out the patterns that have owned you for so long, you don't just change your habits, you change your life. There is one thing that keeps more people trapped than fear, more than comfort, than bad habits. It's the story they keep telling themselves about who they are and why they can't change. Your story is powerful. It shapes your identity. It defines how you see the world. It becomes the lens you live through. If that story is weak, if that story is built on pain, if that story is chained to excuses, then you're not just living with a problem, you're living in a prison. And you build it with your own words. We've all got stories. Maybe your story is, always been broke, so money just isn't for me. Maybe it's, I was hurt, so I can never trust again. Maybe it's, I failed too many times, so I guess I'm not cut out for success. Some of you have been repeating that story so long that you don't even hear it anymore. It's just become the background music of your life. But that story is not just background. It's programming. Programming creates patterns. Patterns create results, and results become your reality. So if you want to change your reality, you've got to change the story. And before you can change it, you've got to destroy the old one. Let me make this clear. Your story is not fact. It's not reality. It's an interpretation. It's the meaning you've given to events in your life. And meaning is not permanent. It's chosen. Two people can live through the same event, and one will use it as a reason to rise. The other uses it as a reason to stay small. The difference isn't the event, it's the story. And for too long, you've been choosing a story that keeps you powerless. Why do we hold on to these old stories? Because they give us certainty. They give us a script. Even if it's painful, it's familiar. If my story is I can't, then I never have to risk. If my story is I've always been this way, then I never have to grow. If my story is people like me don't win, then I never have to put myself out there and face rejection. That's why we cling to these stories. They're not just excuses, they're shields. They protect us from the fear of finding out what we're really capable of. But let me tell you something. The very shield that's been protecting you has also been suffocating you. That story you've been hiding behind is the same story that's been holding you back. You say, this is who I am, but deep down you know it's not. Deep down you know it's just who you've chosen to be over and over again because the story felt safer than the unknown. But safety will never set you free. So here's the challenge. You've got to kill that story. You've got to stop telling it, stop rehearsing it, stop reliving it. Every time you say, this is who I've always been, you're reinforcing chains that don't even exist anymore. You're dragging around the corpse of your past and it's rotting your future. There comes a point where you've got to put it down. You've got to bury it. You've got to say, that story dies here. Think about it. What has your old story cost you? How many opportunities did you walk away from because you told yourself, that's not for me? How many relationships did you sabotage because your story told you, I can't trust anyone? How many times did you quit before you even started because the story in your head screamed, you'll just fail again? That's the price of living in the wrong story. And if you don't end it, you'll pay that price for the rest of your life. But when you destroy the old story, something incredible happens. The moment you let it die, you create space for a new one. The new story doesn't have to be a lie, it has to be a choice. You get to choose a story that empowers you, that strengthens you, that aligns with the person you're becoming instead of the person you've been. You don't have to say, I've always failed. You can say, every failure was training me for this moment. You don't have to say, I can't change. You can say, I'm changing every single day with every single choice. You don't have to say, broken. You can say, I'm unbreakable because I survived. That shift, that new story is not just words, it's identity. And once your identity shifts, everything else follows. You'll take actions you never took before. You'll see possibilities you never saw before. You'll hold yourself to a higher standard than you ever did before. And suddenly life begins to transform, not because circumstances magically changed, but because you did. Here's the thing, you don't need permission to rewrite your story. You don't need anyone else to validate it. You don't need proof from the past. The only thing you need is the decision. The decision that the old story ends here, a new one begins now. The decision that you are no longer chained to what was because you're too busy creating what will be. So let me ask you, what's the story you've been telling yourself that you need to kill tonight? Are the words that have been shaping your identity in the wrong direction? What's the narrative you've been rehearsing that's been keeping you small, keeping you weak, keeping you stuck? Identify it, call it out, and then destroy it. Stop feeding it. Stop speaking it. Stop living in it. Replace it with a new story, one that serves you, one that fuels you, one that aligns with the future you deserve. Because here's the truth. You're not your past. You're not your pain. You're not your mistakes. You're not the labels people gave you. You are who you decide to be right now. And that decision begins with the story you choose to believe. So if you're serious about destroying yourself to build yourself, it's time to stop dragging the old story forward. Kill it, bury it, let it go. Because the story you live by will either imprison you or set you free. And freedom begins the moment you decide that the story of weakness, of excuses, of limitation, and the story of strength, of power, of possibility begins. That new story is the one you were born to live. There comes a moment in life where reduction is no longer about breaking old habits or rewriting your story. It's about rebuilding a foundation so strong that nothing can shake it again. It's about deciding that the person you've burned away will never come back. Because the person you've created in their place is built on discipline, built on standards, built on principles that don't bend when life applies pressure. That's the ultimate transformation, not just killing who you were, but committing so deeply to who you're becoming that you never allow yourself to regress. But here's the hard truth, destruction is messy, growth is uncomfortable. The process of building yourself from the ground up will require a level of consistency and hunger that most people simply won't commit to. Because the old self doesn't go down without a fight. The old patterns will scream at you, the old temptations will pull at you, and the old identity will beg to survive. But that's when you've got to remember, you're not just changing habits, you're declaring war on the weakest version of yourself. Wars aren't won in a single battle, they're won with relentless daily decisions. That's why when you destroy yourself to build yourself, you can't just do it halfway. You can't tear down one wall and leave the rest of the house standing. You've got to bulldoze it all, you've got to remove every trace of the old foundation, because if you leave even one piece standing, it will grow back like a weed and choke the new life you're trying to create. If your old story was laziness, your old story was excuses. If your old story was fear, you've got to kill it every day, not just once. It's a daily destruction followed by daily construction. And when you build, you don't build on emotion. You don't build on motivation. You build on discipline. Motivation is fleeting. It's like fire. It burns hot, but it fades quickly. Discipline is the furnace that keeps burning no matter what storms rage outside. You need to construct your new life around habits that anchor you, rituals that strengthen you, standards that guide you even when nobody's watching. Because the real test of transformation isn't how strong you look when life is easy. It's how unshakable you are when life tries to knock you down again. Think about it. Anyone can feel inspired for a moment. Anyone can feel strong in the middle of a powerful speech. But what happens tomorrow when the alarm clock rings early, when you're tired, when your mind whispers, just go back to the old ways? That's the moment of truth. That's when you either prove the old self is still alive, or you prove you've buried it once and for all. And the proof isn't in your words, it's in your actions. See, rebuilding yourself is about alignment. It's not enough to think differently if you still act the same. It's not enough to act differently if you still believe the old lies. True rebuilding means your thoughts, your words, your emotions, your habits, your environment all line up with the new identity you've chosen. And that doesn't happen by accident. It happens because you make a conscious choice every single day to show up as the new version of you, even when it's hard, even when it's inconvenient, even when it costs you. And make no mistake, it will cost you. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you relationships with people who only know the old version of you and don't want you to change. Cost you the illusion of safety. But what you gain in return is so much greater. You gain self-respect. You gain freedom. You gain the power of knowing that you are not at the mercy of your past. You are the author of your future. That's why destroying yourself to build yourself is not just an act of change, it's an act of creation. You are creating a new standard for your life. You are creating a new identity, forged in fire, unshakable, undeniable. Once you've built that identity, once you've chosen that path, you can never go back. Because going back would mean betraying yourself. And once you've tasted the power of living in alignment, you can't stomach the weakness of living in excuses anymore. Now, let me tell you what happens when you fully embrace this. Life doesn't suddenly get easier, but you get stronger. The challenges don't disappear, but you face them with resilience instead of fear. The pain doesn't vanish, but you use it as fuel instead of letting it poison you. That's the difference between the old self and the new self. The old self was reactive, always at the mercy of circumstances. The new self is proactive, always creating, always building, always rising. And here's the final truth I want you to hear. The person you are becoming doesn't need the approval of anyone else. The person you are building doesn't need permission. You don't need someone to validate you. You don't need to wait for the world to see it. You just need to live it every single day. Because when you live it long enough, the world will have no choice but to see it. So I'm asking you right now, what are you willing to destroy so you can finally build the life you were meant to live? What lies, what patterns, habits, what identities are you ready to burn to the ground? Because the moment you decide, really decide to never go back, that's the moment you rise. And from that moment on, there is no old you. There is only the person you've chosen to become.